We got married young and decided to put off having children for a while. You know, first make money, save up, travel a little. We are ordinary people, not amazingly beautiful, but not ugly, not brilliant, but not stupid either. My wife is a tall, slender woman whose grandparents came from southern Italy, with clear, dark skin, dark eyes, and jet black hair. She has full lips, big eyes, and a strong nose. She thinks the nose is terrible, but to me it speaks of a strong character. She has a natural grace when she walks and moves. I saw her for the first time from across the room and fell in love before I even saw her face. In terms of earnings, we are doing well. We have $150K in assets, thanks to rising real estate prices, even in this terrible market. Over several years of living together, I only had 2 complaints. She's not as smart as I once thought, and she's stubborn as hell. She tends to jump to conclusions, and even after realizing her mistake, she clings to her original opinion. As soon as a thought enters her head, I can bombard her with logical arguments. She will admit her mistake, repeat my point of view to everyone as her own, but then the thought will come up again months later. Every stupid thought she's ever had will probably be running through her head until her last breath. This is a serious problem as I value wit and intelligence above all else. My wife works at Bycatch Industries in Princeton, about 45 minutes from our home. Bycatch is fish, turtles, and other sea creatures caught in fishing nets that have no commercial value, so they are thrown overboard, mostly dead. They make up 70 to 80% of the catch, and their needless destruction is one of the many reasons why the oceans are being depleted so quickly. We only take the fish we like and destroy everything else. Strangely enough, Bycatch actually has nothing to do with fish or fishing. This is a Danish company that buys waste of all types, as well as surplus, and resells or recycles it. They're doing pretty well. Unlike many small European companies in the US, American management is largely here. Buying and selling, negotiating, and taking risks is what they do. My wife is a well-paid buyer-seller and senior product manager specializing in chemicals. For example, she buys methanol waste from a chemical plant that is contaminated with something else and sells it to. Well, in this case, she sold it to a municipal wastewater treatment plant, where contamination is not an issue. She works out of a nondescript office in Princeton, New Jersey. I rarely go into her office, and I don't usually have the desire to go there, but just before Thanksgiving, I happened to be nearby around 11:30 a.m. and decided to stop by and surprise her. Take her to lunch. I know quite a few of her colleagues from parties and stuff, so no one felt the need to announce to me. I waved to people I knew, stopped to chat here and there, and then went upstairs to her area. I looked into her open office door. "Hi, honey, do you have time for me?" "Oh, Chris, it's so nice to see you. It's a surprise." On her table was a nice bouquet of flowers in a cheap glass vase. "I was passing by and wondered if you were free for lunch. Tell me who gave you flowers." To be fair, they were a couple days old, but it was a nice bouquet, probably $70, $80 if delivered here, maybe a little less where we live. "Oh, I thought it was you. The card said from your secret admirer with no name. I was surprised why you didn't say anything about them." "When did they come?" Yesterday, I think. So you weren't the one who sent them." "You know very well that you don't. You would have told me about it last night if you really thought I sent them. Frankly, I'm disappointed that you accepted them. You're a married woman and should know better. When exactly did they come, before lunch or after?" "Nonsense, they're just flowers. Besides, I really thought you sent them. Why do you need to know when they arrived?" "I think it was after lunch, around 3 o'clock. Look, if you really thought I sent them, you would have been in a loving mood last night. You didn't say anything and acted like your usual self, unfortunately. So, if I didn't send them, who do you think this could be?" "Oh, I have no idea. It could have been anyone." "Nonsense. Let's think about it. Your admirer is either a man or a woman. Well, these are the only options, aren't they? No woman has ever given me flowers in my life, so we can conclude that they are from a man." "About?" With an expression of concern. True, it's unlikely to be a woman. Presumably, he sent them for some purpose. He's your secret admirer. So which of your many virtues do you think he admires? How should I know? I don't know. Give me a break, Karen. What do men usually think about when they give flowers to a woman? About romance? Bingo. Women think about romance. Men think about sex. So your crush thinks you're an attractive woman and suspects you're ready for a relationship. It's probably one of their own. Someone out there, a supplier or a client, could approach you without any problems. But someone inside the company may be afraid of accusations of harassment. So he is from the inside, looking for a woman and thinking that you can be available. Now, no one spends $70–80 if he wasn't. Some kind of encouragement was given, some expectation that you would be open to his advances. So this guy was flirting with you and thinks that you are open to his proposals, but did not dare to directly say, "Karen, you are amazing, let's have sex." You're so rude. I'm sure you're not at all like that. Honestly, men. Let me finish. You had two choices. Accept the flowers and the spirit in which they were given, and thereby encourage him to continue. Or reject them and the guy himself, giving them to someone else or putting them in the coffee corner and telling everyone in the office, and me when you got home, that whoever this secret admirer was, he was a fool and wasting his time. Moreover, it was probably someone who was here yesterday afternoon or today, because he would like to see your reaction to them. You know, to see if the fish took the bait. So who fits that description? If you have time for lunch, we can discuss this. Oh, sure. I had plans, but that's no problem. I'll cancel them. Let me make a call first. I told you I don't know anyone who thinks that way about me. Okay, but you don't have to cancel your plans. Really, I wouldn't mind having lunch with your colleagues. She picked up the phone and told me, "It's much nicer to have lunch with you." And then into the phone, "Hey, listen, Chris stopped by to pick me up for lunch, so I had a better option. Another time? My husband, Chris. Okay, see you then." Who was it? Oh, just Roland St. Clair. He's in one of the other offices, coming to Princeton once or twice a month. I'll catch up with him at another time. You're right about the flowers. I didn't even think about it. She took the flowers, and as we walked through the office, she said, a little louder than necessary, "I really thought these were from you," and threw them rather dramatically with a loud thud into the trash can. As we walked into the parking lot, I asked, "Oh, does Roland fit that description?" "Who, him?" "No, he's just a guy I work with. Nothing special. Why are you so focused on this? It doesn't matter, my dear." She knew who sent them, but I wasn't going to get the name out of her, so I decided to let it go. We had a good lunch. She was affectionate, trying to convince me that we were a couple. For whatever reason, be it guilt, confidence, or premenstrual cravings, the evening was a great success. About 3 weeks later, at the Bycatch Christmas party, Karen was walking around the room while I was chatting with Natalie Waskey and Julie Sullivan, a couple of her colleagues. We were people watching when a guy came through the door. When you notice a ladies' man, you can see it right away. I noticed this guy as soon as he entered the room. He threw his coat onto a chair and, after a quick scan of the room, walked straight towards a group of 3 women, one of whom was my wife. Karen noticed him coming and looked at me out of the corner of her eye. Lovelace immediately began communicating with her, which caused visible irritation in the other 2 women. He touched her lightly, first on the shoulder, then on the top of her arm, not obscenely, but rather familiarly. Too familiar for my liking. Although she didn't respond much, she did put her hand on his arm a couple of times. I asked, "Who is this guy talking to my wife? You can almost see him drooling." They looked there. Natalie snorted with some contempt. "This is Roland St. Clair. He's that guy. He's from the office in Wilmington, but he comes here every week or 2 and basically wastes our time. He spends his afternoons bragging and flirting, making innuendos and witty remarks. This idiot has been accused of harassment several times. His sister is rumored to be married to Sven Sederqvist, so everything is covered. What a bastard. We can always spot him because he has a bright yellow Hummer. What an idiot. We all laughed about it. Well, he seems like a ladies' man to me. I'd better send him away before my wife has to complain about him too. Karen's friends moved away, either to avoid Roland or perhaps knowing when they weren't wanted. When I approached the two of them, my wife's back was towards me. I put my arm around her neck and over her shoulder, deliberately making a possessive gesture. She jerked her hand away from Roland's wrist. She was no doubt guilty of bad thoughts. My right arm was hugging my wife, but I pointedly did not offer my hand for a handshake. "Hi, I'm Chris, Karen's husband. Who are you?" "Oh, don't you know Roland? Chris, this is Roland St. Clair. He works in accounting in Wilmington." "It's very nice to meet you," Roland said. He started to extend his hand, but realized that it would be stupid and withdrew it. I don't think Karen noticed. "You work with Karen? I mean, you handle her accounts and stuff." "Oh no, my job has nothing to do with Roland," Karen blurted out hastily. "We both love the Flyers hockey team." "I'm guessing Roland can answer that himself. So you don't have any business dealings with Karen?" News to me that she's interested in hockey. As far as I know, she's never watched a game in her life. "Karen's right about the job, but I'm a big Flyers fan. I never miss a game," the ladies' man said. "Well, Roland, is your wife here? I'd like to meet her. Maybe the four of us could go to a Flyers game. Karen and I have never been to a hockey game. It would be cool to go with people who actually know the game. It should be fun." My wife looked at me sideways. My proposal was not met with enthusiasm. No, Sandra couldn't make it. A Flyers game would have been great, but she hates sports, just like Karen says you do. Honestly, Karen and I should go and leave you and Sandra at home. The wife smiled at these words. "That's not an option. Karen and I have been married long enough for me to have learned the importance of sharing passions. I played hockey in high school, so at least I know the game, but I never followed sports corporations. I always thought that if I root for some corporation, it's better for the one in which I have shares. But rhetoric aside, I would love to watch the game, especially if Karen is really passionate about it. If, Sandra doesn't like hockey, what do you two usually do together?" The wife was unhappy. She didn't like my question. "Chris, with Roland and his wife." I squeezed her shoulder a little harder, but she ignored my signal. "Things are not going well right now." "Oh, I'm really sorry to hear that, Roland. Can you tell me what happened?" "Chris, it's none of our business, is it? You're always in charge of Roland? It's annoying. How can I know how Roland feels if you keep interrupting? But since you knew about it, that means Roland thinks it's your business. And since married people don't have many secrets, it's my business now. I mean, why did you mention it if you and he didn't want to talk about it?" "Oh well, why are you being so rude? Roland, let me pour a couple of cocktails into him and we can talk later." She literally pulled me by the sleeve to the bar and ordered us drinks. She was on edge. Apparently, I provoked her more than I expected. "Okay, so what's the reason for Roland's problems with his wife? Is he cheating on her?" "Chris, I can't talk about them. It's confidential. Roland sure doesn't want his family problems to spill over into his entire job, does he? Roland is going through a tough time right now, and I'm just a friend supporting him." "Karen, I understand that being here in this crowd may not be the time or place to talk about this topic, but if you think that I can't keep a secret or that I might be unrestrained, then you really don't know the right person. Whom you married, it is not only reasonable, but also right that you should share with me what another man tells you about his intimate relationship. First of all, you are not a marriage counselor, and often such stories serve to lower the barrier between right and wrong relationships. Secondly, you may be tempted to respond in kind and talk about your marital difficulties. It's okay if you're talking to a good friend who has no vested interest in your marriage, someone who clearly cares about your well-being. I believe that you sincerely want to help Roland and his wife reunite. Unfortunately, it's a short step to feeling sympathy for Roland and comforting someone in pain. He wants to get you. I think he wants to create discord between us, to divide us so he can take you for himself. His comments and advice are not in your best interests. And finally, I'm a man and I can give you a man's perspective on this. I would be more confident if you could openly tell me about your relationship with Roland, so that I can be sure that your desire to support him will not go too far. What are you accusing me of, huh? Go ahead, lay it out. Do you think I'm sleeping with him? Is that true? Well, I'm not sleeping. You've been nagging me all evening. What's wrong with you? The guilty person flees when he is not pursued. She drank her drink like water. As I poured most of my drink into my half-empty beer glass, she glanced around the crowd. It was a night to stay completely sober. I'm not accusing you of sleeping with him. I'm warning you about the threat to us. Look, let's talk about this later. Neither of us wants to have a public fight. Let's dance, honey. She finished her drink, and I swallowed the few remaining drops for show before we hit the dance floor. She wanted another drink, and as before, she drank it quickly, and I took a couple of sips and poured out the rest. Back on the dance floor, she became softer as we slowly danced, and I whispered sweet words in her ear. The next dance was fast, which is not my talent, but I held on. The second one was also fast, and suddenly I noticed Roland squirming next to me. I must admit, he was a good dancer. You have to give him credit for his impudence. After a minute or so, he stood in front of me and Karen began to follow him. I pulled him close to whisper in his ear quietly enough that his wife wouldn't hear, but with the music, it was loud as hell to him. Fuck off, asshole. You can ask my wife to dance when you come with your own wife. In the meantime, stay away from Karen. If you send her flowers again, I'll stick a vase in your ass. Got it? He looked at me with hatred, tense as if he was about to fight. Then he lowered his head and left. Karen could guess what I said and began to chide me for being rude to poor Roland. I noticed that the others were starting to pay attention, so I grabbed her upper arm tightly and mumbled in her ear. We need to talk somewhere where we won't make a scene in front of your co-workers. Smile while you're walking outside with your husband, I said, leading her out to the parking lot. Poor Roland. He's so lonely. I'm just trying to be his friend. You know, help him and his wife get back together. You're so mean, Chris. You have no reason to be mean to Roland. Don't you dare talk to me like that again or contact me. I am not 10 years old. Enough of this nonsense. You're blind here. Let me tell you how things are. Like that old song, he's just a hound hanging around my door. These are not the right words. The song goes, you're just a hunting dog, crying all the time. My mom was an Elvis fan and sang that song all the time. Plus, Roland has a right to be sad. I was quoting Eric Clapton's version. Everyone has a right to be sad. Look, Roland is snooping around your skirt, and you know why. His problems with his wife are because he cheats on her with other women, and I'm sure she's not the only one he's trying to seduce. I was speculating here, but I think I figured it out. I would prefer if you stayed away from him altogether, but you work for the same company. You both admitted that you have no business reasons for dating, so you are not obligated to waste your time entertaining him or going to lunch with him. I understand that he regularly comes to your office in Princeton. He is having trouble looking for a home, and he will not intrude on our marriage. Chris, I'm an adult. You're not going to tell me who I can hang out with. Karen, I have never, in all the years of our dating or marriage, given you direct orders, but now I do. Tolerate him in public because you have to, but you should never, ever be alone with him outside of work. No lunches, just the two of us, no after-work cocktails, no car rides, no phone calls, no emails, no instant messages. Do you understand? She started crying, which turned into sobs and accusations. She was slurring her words, and I thought it was just the alcohol. As we were leaving the parking lot, she suddenly sat up straight and shouted, "Wait, wait, my coat is there. Stop it. We need to go back. Your coat will be there tomorrow. You can pick it up then. Did you understand what I said a minute ago? Listen, damn it. You take me back there, or when we get home, I get in my car and drive there myself. Good for me. If you still want to come back to the party when we get home, I'll take you wherever you say. You're upset, almost out of your mind, and you've been drinking a lot. Roland is bad news. I love you and I won't give up. From you without a fight. She sulked all the way home. When the car stopped in the driveway, she jumped out of the car, burst into the house, headed straight upstairs, slammed the bedroom door, and locked it before throwing herself on the bed. I heard a dull sound. I wondered if I had been too harsh. Now Roland was the victim, and the forbidden fruit was sweet. There is no point in checking your home computer. They can communicate all day on their work computers. I spent half the night thinking about the situation. I wasn't going to give her up without a fight, but if I lost, she'd walk out the door. I needed to collect credit card information and do a credit report to see what cards we had open. The joint cards had to be canceled. I decided to apply for a couple of cards in my name. I should have gone to a damn lawyer. At least I knew where the bank accounts were. Crap, crap, crap. The next day I went into the bedroom to get dressed and found that the door was unlocked. Karen was still sleeping while I brushed my teeth, got dressed, and left for work. I have a friend, Grace Chang. She is in charge of the computer systems where I work as a field service technician. I brought her a cup of coffee and sat down on the chair next to her desk. I complained to her about Roland and my wife, asking what to do. Been through this, I know what it's like. About 8-10 months ago, I thought my husband was cheating on me too. Like you, I didn't have access to his work emails, and I had no idea who he could sleep with. I bought a transponder, too actually, because he has a car and a truck. I could track where he went by going online. I did this for 3 weeks. It seemed like he was just driving around doing nothing. What the hell, I thought. For my birthday, he gave me a beautiful antique mirror for the dressing table. It turned out that he went to antique shops everywhere. What an idiot I was. Grace, I think Roland is trying to instruct me on horns, and achieves this by telling her touching stories. I'm really afraid that my wife is falling for this. Don't be stupid. Karen seems like a good person. Look, I still have those transponders and the program. Bring your laptop tomorrow. I'll load the program into it. You can use the transponders as long as you need. Put one on Roland's car, the other on your wife's car, and you can track where they go. It's easy. Well, Grace, that's the way forward, isn't it? Karen has a certain naivety and empathy, so it might be kind-hearted of her, except for Roland. I'm sure there's smoke. Innocent until proven guilty, right? Let's do it. After work, I went to a spy store and bought a clock radio with a built-in color camera and microphone that transmitted a signal up to 500 feet. It even came with software for recording the signal on a laptop and editing audio-video. I didn't have a clear plan. I just thought pictures are worth 1,000 words and they might come in handy at some point. I also thought that if I had problems with the program, Grace would be able to sort it out. There was no need to worry. I followed the instructions and everything worked great. The small camera transmitted the sound and image of the TV in my living room to a computer more than 1,000 feet away. The picture was a little grainy, but the sound was great. The next day, Grace programmed my computer to receive signals from the transponders. Everything looked good. The accuracy was about 20 yards. The map showed a small car with all the restaurants, hotels, and other objects around. When you click on Google Earth, you can see the area. I needed to know when Roland would be in the office, but I was worried about call identification. Since I had a distinctive voice, I asked a friend to call the Bycatch Industries office in Wilmington and asked the receptionist if Roland would be available in the afternoon. She was very concerned that he had an important meeting between 2 and 4 o'clock and would only have half an hour to spare before meeting Fleming at 4:30. My friend said he'll try it another day. Everything is ready. I left work at noon and drove to Wilmington. There was no security in the parking lot as far as I could see. There's no mistaking the yellow Hummer. I wonder if he's driving down the street pretending to be a real man driving to Fallujah, dodging roadside bombs. I installed the transponder as directed to get the best signal and found a hot wire to connect it to. I checked my computer before I left the parking lot, and yay, here's the yellow SUV badge. I went home. That evening, I installed a second transponder on my wife's car. Keeping track of these things was a problem with my job. I'm not usually near an internet connection. Most of the time, I will know where they went after they have already left. On the way home, I called Natalie Waskey at Bycatch. Natalie, this is Chris Harlow. Do you have a couple of minutes for me? Of course, sir. Can I have your contact information, please? Excellent. How can I help you? It's good that you're being discreet, Natalie. I wouldn't want this to become office gossip. Quite right, sir. Look, Roland could be a problem for me. I certainly don't want to put you in the awkward position of being my spy, but I thought just calling me when you know Roland will be in Princeton might be a reasonable request. Of course, sir, but are you sure this won't create more, perhaps more serious, problems? Absolutely not. You have my word that I won't attack Roland or tarnish his reputation or Karen's. Well, I'll probably tell his wife if anything happens between them, just to keep both families on an equal footing. There is no point in mentioning your role in all this. If you call me from someone else's phone, your contribution will be completely untraceable. Oh, great. That's exactly what I meant. Let me get the information you requested and get back to you. Thanks for calling Bycatch. Have a nice day. When Karen came home, I cooked a nice dinner. She was coldly polite to me. When she went into the bedroom to do crossword puzzles after dinner, I installed a second transponder on her car. Sure enough, I went online and there was a map with red marks, 1 and 2 inches for each of the cars. Over the next week, I checked both cars every time I passed a cafe with Wi-Fi. Nothing important. On Wednesday, Natalie called to say the shipment would arrive tomorrow morning. On Thursday morning, Karen drove to work while Roland drove non-stop to Bycatch Industries in Princeton. Roland's car went out for lunch, but returned an hour later. I had to do some digging, but it turns out he went to the Smoking Pig barbecue. At least when I looked for restaurants on Cottage Street, this was the only restaurant within a 3-block radius. Karen loves barbecue, but that doesn't prove she dined with him. I didn't know for sure until Natalie called and said they had lunch at the Smoking Pig for an hour before she hung up. The situation at home has calmed down a bit over the past week. That evening, Karen came home almost on time, as usual. Over dinner, we talked about our day. Among other things, she said she had lunch in the cafeteria and ate chicken salad with cottage cheese with a couple of other women with whom she usually hangs out. What, you haven't had any barbecue? I asked. She became furious. What are you trying to say? Are you calling me a liar? Why do you think I ate barbecue? Well, what's that brownish-red stain on the pocket of your blouse? Too dark for ketchup, too thick for wine, so BBQ sauce from Smoking Pig. And you like BBQ, so where's that stain coming from? I'll say, Dr. Watson, has Sherlock Holmes really discovered the riddle? No, it's just a stain on my shirt. But her face frowned as she began to rub the stain. Well, rather, it's a stain on your integrity. You lied about not going out to lunch, didn't you? You and Roland went to this barbecue restaurant for lunch, and you lied about it. I'm serious, Karen. I'll put up with you going behind my back, ruining our marriage, damn it. What makes you think about Roland all the time? If I puncture a tire on the way home, you'll blame it on Roland. You can't tell me who to date and who not to date. I won't give you that power over me. I'm right, aren't I? If you say no, I can call Phillies at Bycatch and ask her, you know. She hated Phillies. Okay, but all I did was go to lunch with him. Nothing happened, and nothing will happen. How did you know? Did anyone at work see us? The innocent needn't worry. No one gave you away, just deductive logic. It's a very bad sign that you lied to me, Karen. But you're right, honey, that I can't force you to behave. Lincoln freed the slaves. Ultimately, we are both free to do what we want, whatever we want. If you really want Roland and not me, I won't stand in your way. Honestly, given your recent behavior, if it weren't for him, it would have been someone else some other time. Listen, Get away from fucking Roland. And if you hired surveillance on me, then screw you. You're wasting your money. I'm outraged that you treat me like a child and try to dictate who I can talk to and all that. You're obsessed with Roland and trying to control me. You're sick. Nonsense. Of the 300 million people in this country, and in the 5 years that we have known each other, Roland is the only person I warned you about. I am not trying to control you. I am telling you the consequences if you continue down this path. If you don't act like a married woman and make the concessions necessary to save the marriage, you won't be a married woman. Look, I told you not to be alone with him, and you went to dinner with him. Even worse, you lied about it, so you've been warned. Honestly, I'm hurt that you did this, and a little scared for the future. I really don't think I'm in the wrong here. Well, you're wrong. I'm not jumping into bed with him. I'm just helping him cope with his difficulties. Look, maybe we're too involved in this to be objective. Let's call your sister and ask her to weigh in on who's right and who's wrong. She's always on your side. Forget about her. I'm a grown woman, and I know what I'm doing. I thought for a long time. I was in pain. I felt like my wife was deliberately stabbing me in the heart, and I wanted revenge. If I had pictures of the two of them, or even Karen alone, but in a context where she was probably with Roland, I might have ruined the whole situation. Better prepare for the worst. I went to a lawyer's office and bought a set of divorce papers. They even included a free will writing kit. The bad news was that I would have to sell the house to pay her share. The house went up in value because of the enormous effort I put into it, and because property prices in the area were skyrocketing. We had about $15,000 in savings and equity in cars, but about $150,000 in equity in the house. Karen will get half. This seemed unfair since most of our income came from me. I needed to think about it. I filled out the papers and put them in the envelope. It was easy. I filled out the will too, since I started. I bequeathed my property in half to my parents and the Boy Scouts. I put it with my work stuff until I could get it certified. I bought a new lock for my front door, but didn't have time to install it. I found the garage door instructions and looked up how to change the code. Over the next week, nothing interesting appeared on the tracking screen. On Wednesday of week 3, while I was in North Jersey, I went to Panetteria, which had free Wi-Fi. I went online and saw that Roland drove to Princeton in the morning, but stopped at 8:30 am for 11 minutes. The stopping location was at the I-95 exit about 10 minutes from Bycatch. It could be anything, but there is a Holiday Inn Express and a sleep-in there. I called the sleep-in and asked for Roland St. Clair. There was no such person. I dialed the Holiday Inn number. When they moved me to a room, I hung up without waiting for an answer. I apologized to the client and headed to Princeton. At 10:30, the lobby was empty. I called the counter, and a guy came out wearing a poorly ironed white shirt, scuffed shoes, and black pants that looked like they had never seen an iron. I told him that I was Roland St. Clair and that I had accidentally locked myself outside, forgetting my room number. He was about to scold me when I handed him a fan of $5.20 bills. "Yes, sir, I remember you, Mr. St. Clair." After rustling a little behind the counter and winking, he said, "Here is your room, Mr. St. Clair, number 114. I got up and set the clock radio so that it had a clear view of the bed and took the hotel clock with me. I checked the signal reception and everything worked fine. I used the hotel's Wi-Fi to find out where they were. Crap. Roland was about 3 miles away. I thought they would have lunch first. I hurried to my car and stopped at the Denny's across the street. A few minutes later, a yellow Hummer pulled into the Holiday Inn parking lot. The video signal was not picked up here. Or perhaps the device had a motion sensor and simply wasn't sending a signal. I should have read the instructions more carefully. I don't remember if it has such a function or not. I gave them 2 minutes, drove to the hotel, and parked around the corner from room 313 so they wouldn't see my car if they happened to look out the window. Great welcome. She came out of the bathroom, still dressed, and hugged a fully dressed Roland. He said, "I'd like you to take your clothes off for me." I called her cell phone and heard it ring in her bag. She didn't even look at him. I turned down the volume on the computer and left a message, trying to keep my voice from shaking. Hi, honey. I've been sitting here imagining you naked and hungry for sex, and I thought I'd call to tell you how vivid my imagination is. See you later. She unclasped her bra from the back. She turned to the camera, her back to Roland. A few minutes later, they were already having sex. This lasted about an hour and a half. I had all this on my computer, and I had already seen enough. Now it's time to pay. I went home, sat down, and connected to the internet. I wanted to disguise my wife's face a little so that later I could pretend that I didn't recognize her. It took me a while to figure out what software I needed to do this, but I finally got it done. I went to one of those sites for hobbyists where you can post photos and videos. I created a fake account, RSTC, and a disposable email address. Using a fake ID, I could post a video with a comment. I thought long and hard about the text from the supposed photographer because I wanted Roland to clearly use my wife. I settled on the following. Here's a wonderful fool that I just started training. Her husband is sure that I have sex with her, but it kills him because he can't prove it. Stay tuned to the site. In a month or so, I will introduce her to some of my friends and I'll make some more videos. You'll have to pay to watch them, but it's worth it. Of course, the likelihood that my wife would ever see this site without my help was negligible. The plan was for me to use some of the words and commands that Roland had spoken to my wife. She may ignore the first couple of times, but sooner or later she will realize where she heard them before and get scared. First, I will say that I saw them on some website. I'll let her push me and then, very reluctantly, agree to show her the site. This should end Roland once and for all. She was a little late coming home, but, to be honest, she looked and behaved normally, perhaps even a little depressed. I made a salad, chicken scallopini with roasted Italian vegetables. So, darling, did you have a good day? A worried expression appeared on her face. Well, the sexy message you left on my cell phone was very nice to receive. But other than that, nothing out of the ordinary. I'm completely exhausted. If you still have any romantic intentions, they'll have to wait until tomorrow. Oh, that. Actually, it's the way you walk and move. It's kind of sluggish or maybe blurry. Oh, and you smell different. I can't put my finger on that smell, something like lavender soap and some musk. Did you come in for a drink? She had a slight blush on her cheeks. No, I drove home straight from work. I planned to hug her and kiss her as usual, but I felt disgusted. I realized that what I saw this afternoon completely turned me off. I don't think my feelings will change over time. I no longer looked at her with anger and contempt. I was wasting my time staying with her. Why bother? I didn't want her back. If she thinks Roland is so wonderful, then let her be with him. Why the hell would I be with her if she doesn't want me? I began to rethink the video and my plan to annoy her. If I make her believe the worst about Roland through a porn site, she'll leave him, but then she might try to win me back. She will stick to me like toilet paper to the sole of a shoe. It's best to move on and plan accordingly. So I never mentioned the site, and as far as I know, she never saw it. I made no attempt to have sex with her that night. I just didn't care. The next morning, as soon as she walked out the door, I called a courier service to pick up the divorce papers and deliver them at 4 p.m. to my wife's work. I went to the bank. I transferred money between a savings account and a brokerage account to split it 50-50. By this time, she was already at work, so I closed all of our joint credit cards. When I returned home, I changed the lock on the front door. I carefully packed her work clothes into her suitcase. I put all the other clothes in her closet into heavy-duty trash bags. I went online. The Hummer was in Wilmington and his wife's car was at work. I didn't bother taking things out of her dresser. I wrapped a rope around it to keep the boxes from falling out and used a dolly on 2 wheels to wheel it out to the car. I almost tore myself trying to lift it onto the roof rack. I loaded the car with garbage bags. I remembered the garage door opener and simply pulled it out of the socket. Having locked the front door, I drove to her mother's house. Her mother was stunned. I asked her not to call her daughter until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, since I needed to move more things. On the second trip, I loaded the bed and mattress onto the roof of the car, loaded the bedding, her bedside table, and a few more bags of belongings into the trunk. The last time I went back and collected her CDs and stuff, 2 boxes of trinkets and books. I looked like a modern-day refugee from the Great Depression, slowly driving towards her mother. Her mother remarked, "I like the idea of her living in the garage. That way she'll know it's temporary. In 4 or 5 months, it'll be freezing cold here. It'll give her an incentive to move out. I've always liked you, Chris. Is it too arrogant to ask you to stay in touch?" "Grace, I'd love to keep in touch, especially if it means home-cooked dinners every now and then." I assembled the bed, connected the lamp and alarm clock. I even made the bed. What a great guy I am. At 3:10, I sat with her mother drinking beer while she called Karen in the office. "Karen, I just wanted to tell you that Chris kicked you out, and I need to put you in temporarily. Chris brought most of your stuff and put it in the garage. I don't know what you were thinking, you stupid fool," and hung up. "Is this really the end, Chris? You seem so happy. What really happened?" I told her some details without going into detail. "Yes, this is practically the end of our marriage. Your daughter does not seem to understand what marriage is and what our mutual responsibilities are. I don't think she is ready for this. Perhaps she will be ready for the next marriage. I must admit, there is not much hope. Let's see." On my way back to my house, I called Roland's wife and told her what happened. She told me to fuck off and mind my own business. I pointed out that it was still my business since he was sleeping with my future ex-wife, but I received no thanks. Well, some people are simply impossible to please. I composed what I thought was a good letter. "Karen, you were right. It's nice of you to help Roland deal with his family problems, whatever they may be. It's important to you and important to him, but not so much to me. I really want you to be happy, so as I promised, I am releasing you from our marriage. You can devote yourself entirely to Roland and many others who will no doubt take my place as he took mine. I don't know what you are looking for in this life, but as I reflect on our time together, I feel relieved that your future is no longer tied to me. Know that I will not speak ill of you and will be polite to you whenever we meet. I wish you to find peace and joy in this life. Chris." I went back to her mother and unloaded the last of the trash bags in the garage. He put the letter in a sealed envelope and left it on the bed. After saying goodbye and kissing her mother, I headed home. As I approached our neighborhood, I parked 2 blocks from the house. Karen or Roland might want revenge, and I preferred to keep my car out of sight. I walked across the street behind our house and entered through Mrs. Corbin's backyard, which is adjacent to our house. I unlocked the back door and entered the house. Looking outside, I made sure that Karen had not arrived yet. I checked the computer. Roland's car was at his home in Wilmington. Karen had just left work. Guess she didn't get the message from her mother. I changed the message on the answering machine to say that Karen no longer lives at this number, blah blah blah. Too soft. I erased it and wrote a new message. Karen doesn't live here anymore. I've included her cell number for anyone looking for her. At first, she denied doing anything with Roland other than talking. By the end of the week, she admitted that she got carried away once, but it won't happen again. Okay, I didn't have to mention the videotape. Her mother called on Friday and asked me to meet Karen at her house on Saturday. I agreed. I have a literary site to thank for an idea that saved me a ton of money. I wrote a contract that stated that in the future, if one of us cheated on the other and the evidence of the cheating was sufficient to convince a judge, the cheating spouse would leave the marriage with only $10,000. I deliberately wrote the document rather crudely and made an appointment with my lawyer, Bert. I showed him the document. But the document is deliberately written crudely. I want her to think that it is just a private agreement. I want you to review it and, where necessary, change it so that it becomes a legally binding, flawless contract, but maintains an amateurish tone of letters. He read the document again. I'm supposed to have to tinker with it a lot to raise the fee, but the document is fine as is. I've done a few prenuptial agreements, but never a prenuptial agreement. This is something new. You'll need to make 2 copies, one for each, and they must be witnessed and dated by someone. Will her mother be suitable? Well, legally yes, but will she confirm her signature later in court? Why take the risk? Better to find someone else who has no vested interest. The fee was modest, and the trap was ready. We met at her mother's, just the 2 of us. She was dressed rather seductively, barefoot, in a light summer dress, and, as far as I could tell, no underwear. Karen, did I have the time wrong? I thought your mom said 12:30. No, you came on time. Why would you think otherwise? Well, with the way you're dressed, I thought maybe Rolly was going to come over. I haven't seen Roland in a while, and I don't plan to again. I dressed like this for you. Chris, I really ruined everything, didn't I? What was the last day? What? You said you haven't seen him for a long time, and I asked what day you were talking about. The day before you kicked me out. Oh, sorry, there was no reason to stop seeing him. After all, he is your friend, and a friend in need is a true friend, whatever that means. Well, I guess you were right about his family problems. You know he... Wait, did you forget? Rolly doesn't want you to discuss his family problems with me. This is confidential. And after all the work you did to reconcile Rolly and Sandra, I can't believe you're going to divulge details now. Okay, maybe I deserve it, but please stop with the sarcasm. I freely admit I was a fool, but I love you. I really hope you can find it in yourself to forgive me, but I don't see how that's possible. You probably hate me. I'd like to continue this conversation, but it's 12:15 and my stomach is crying out for food. Change into your street clothes and we'll go to the pub. In the car, I reduced the conversation to trifles. We sat in the back booth, alone. So you asked if I hate you. Of course not. I try not to hate anyone, not you, not Rolly, not corrupt politicians. Hate is too destructive for the one who experiences it. In order not to hate you, I have to forgive you, and I did it. She looked surprised, and her complaints stopped. But that's not the point. If it really was just stupidity on your part, I might be able to get over it in time, but I've thought about it a lot. I think the real problem is that you're an immature fool. I gave you a lot of opportunities to think about your actions, but you just couldn't do it. I don't blame you for this. That's how you are, at least at this stage of your life. Since it's not entirely your fault, perhaps there is a chance to forgive you. You'll get wiser over time, but I really don't want to wait to see when or if that will happen. You're great at a lot of things, but you know absolutely nothing about the things I value, and I don't suffer fools. Chris, believe me, I've matured very quickly in the last few weeks. I think we can save our marriage, and I'll do whatever it takes. What do you think we need to do? Well, I thought about it. I trusted you implicitly, and that trust was completely unfounded. One of your strengths is that you empathize with people, almost like Mother Teresa, but with a different profession. Think what a tragedy that would be if someone married her and she remained a housewife in Peoria. All these people in India who would not be helped. Mother Teresa was born in Peoria. I didn't know that. Is it true? I was speaking metaphorically. She was born in Macedonia. Anyway, I feel like I married you and limited you. I mean, if someone feels bad, has low self-esteem, has problems in marriage or with impotence, I could spend a little time with him, tell him a joke, or give him a few dollars, but that would be the end of it. To really help them. It would be wrong for me to interfere with such a call. Roland, and no doubt many others, would be left alone to find a way on their own. There was no one else, only once with Roland, and... Oh, that's true humility. A rich man who has a lot of money gives millions to charity, but when asked, he humbly says, "Oh, I just help where I can." True, you are too modest, but I understand modesty is also a virtue. I wasn't going to make it easy for her. Chris, I really realized how much I messed up. I've grown up a lot, honestly. I'll think about it, Karen. It comes down to whether I want to risk spending a few more years of my life with you or move on. Let's meet again tomorrow. Stay here at 12:30. Of course, of course, at 12:30. She was waiting for me when I walked through the door at 12:35. I don't know how long she was there, but her glass of beer was only a third full. As before, we talked about trifles. I didn't ask if her mother's garage was starting to feel cozy and homey. Okay, here's what I thought. The way I see it, if you mess up once, chances are you'll do it again. If I have to go through the pain of my wife cheating again, I want to get paid for it. This is compensation. So here's the deal. If I catch you cheating and I can prove it to a judge, you will leave the marriage with $10,000 and I will get the rest. Of course, it's fair to offer you the same deal. This punishes the cheater. If we both sign this agreement, we will bury the hatchet and move on with our lives. I moved to her an amateurishly written contract with insignificant spelling errors. As I expected, she quickly read it and said, "Okay, that's fair. I can sign it. I really appreciate you being so generous. I don't know if I could do that if I were you. Let's hope that none of us end up in my shoes in the future. Dante, please come here for a moment." The owner, our casual acquaintance, immediately came over. "Ah, Chris, Karen, are you having problems? New people in the kitchen always give me trouble." "Nothing like that, Dante. Karen and I are signing an agreement between ourselves, and we need someone to witness the signatures. You don't have to read the documents, you're just witnessing the signing process itself." Of course, Dante will do this for his friends. It was all over in a minute. Karen and I had a signed, certified document. This was followed by a second honeymoon with vows of fidelity, love, and the like. But she was stubborn, and I suspected that her affair was not over yet. On Monday, I returned to the motel. Indeed, the same administrator was on duty. "Troy, can I talk to you?" "Certainly." "Listen, if anyone makes a reservation under the name Roland St. Clair, give them the same room as last time. Room 114. And here's your trouble." "Well, I don't know. It's rare to have genius scientists working the front desk. Look, you have to give the client a room. He's already stayed in this room and probably likes it, so it makes sense to give him a room he likes. One he's already familiar with. If anyone asks, though no one will, it's just good customer service. Of course, if the customer asks for another number, please give him another number." "Well, okay," he said, pocketing the cash. On Thursday at 9 o'clock, I received a short call. "The accountant is back," and Natalie hung up. I was free from work that day, so I looked into the tracking program. Of course, Roland had stopped at a motel that morning on his way to Princeton. At 11:45, my phone rang again. "Trouble in Paradise. She said she wasn't coming back today." A few minutes later, the phone rang again. "Your buddy said hi to everyone until next time and left. Good luck, Chris. I hope it's not what it seems." I checked the tracking. They were heading to a motel, but stopped at a steakhouse. Fine. I had enough time. I was sitting in the parking lot across from the motel, munching on a delicious sandwich from Krusty Loaf Deli. I brushed away the crumbs and sipped my coffee as they pulled into the parking lot. They parked right in front of room 114. I took a few pictures of them hugging outside their cars before heading to the motel room door. A minute or two later, I pulled into the parking lot just like before, out of sight. My computer started recording the scene as I was crossing the street. The dialogue was different, but the actions were about the same. Here's the contract that Chris wrote. It was awkward. He asked me to sign it right there in that terrible pub he loves, the Jolly Big Place on Main Street. That weird guy who owns it, Dante, what, then there was a witness. Well, who would write such an amateur contract? You know, it sounds stupid, but Roland, this is the last time, at least for a while. I don't want him to find out, although it's unlikely. But he already guessed it once, maybe he'll guess it again. It wouldn't be very good. Karen, just listen to this. My God, is this a contract? This is completely amateurish, and even the spell check was turned off. They would laugh at this in court. Forget about it. This is just a Perry Mason dream. Who is Perry Mason? He was a lawyer on a TV show, a pompous ass. In his super serious way, he got people to admit to God knows what on the witness stand. Totally unrealistic. Forget about last weekend, come here. She came closer. Rolly, you're not listening to me. This is the last time. Nonsense, Karen. You said it last time. I need you. You need me. Don't you love what we do together? With me, you can ask for anything, do anything, and we do it. Look. I was wondering what to do next. As a result, I drove up to their room, got out of the car, and stood next to the door. My digital camera could record about 5 minutes of conversation, and I didn't have to wait long. I turned on the camera when I heard someone remove the chain from the lock. Karen rushed out, calling over her shoulder. Okay, Rolly, same time next week. You can have sex with him tomorrow if you want. Oh, damn, you scared me. What are you doing here? Oh my God. I'm doing what you're doing, watching the end of our marriage. There's no point in going home. You have nowhere to go. I changed the lock. I'll give your things to your mom. No, Chris, you can't. Oh, I can and I will. I've already gone the extra mile. And you fool, you just spent $100,000 on your little pleasure. I get the house and our investment, and you only have $10,000 left. But I guess you're already realized. Chris, you fucking bastard. You can't do this. There's no point in staying and gloating. As I approached my car, Roland's head poked around the door. Rolly, I hope Karen's style of marriage counseling has helped you and Grace. Oh, and don't forget to take the two of them to a Flyers game. She'll love it. Everyone goes there to fight. Everything went smoothly, despite Karen's attempts to derail the divorce, and when that failed, she tried to get half the assets. My wife begged and begged, but our contract stood. I got rid of her on my own terms. I wondered what I would have done if she had taken the straight path. Would I stay married? But if only mushrooms would grow, then the hands of a wandering artisan would not be needed. Roland and Grace broke up. Karen tried to transfer to Wilmington so they could live together. Last I heard, they had split up too, and Karen was living in Tulsa. Well, thank God. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.